So the Plaza came about after an initial survey that we ran as part of DMC that was looking at what the music community really needed locally. Part of what came about was the lack of venue provision or accessible venues for young musicians and bands to perform and to grow their audiences with that, and all the skill sets you need to actually do that job. We looked at the likes of the Hidden Door Festival in Scotland, in Edinburgh, the Moth Club in London, and there was a few others that were dotting around as well, in Europe especially, that were looking at kind of taking over the abandoned, the ruinous, the kind of empty spaces around their cities or their places and filling them with music and creating a venue out of that, or creating a space for people to come to. So with that, the Plaza was born. For Dumfries.
So the general concept of the Plaza was to sort of create awareness on our high street that where there's a space, there's a creative one, and because there was this lack of venue provision for emerging artists, we wanted to create that platform for those artists to allow them to put on their own gigs in unusual spaces. So we wanted to create a bit of an underground movement of not only just artists and musicians, but also with other creative collaborators.
The name itself was actually from a dance hall that I believe was in just off the high street. The exact kind of dates of it I can't actually be entirely sure, but I believe it's from the sort of 20s up to about the 50s that it existed, probably actually the early 60s as well. And it was as your grandparents or even great-grandparents might recall now, was the dancing. It was the place where folk went, and back then you didn't necessarily, wasn't about going to raves or punk bands or anything like that. It was about swing bands and the dancing and meeting others and things like that. So I thought it would be an interesting idea to resurrect that idea of the dance hall, or resurrect that kind of branding and that name, the Plaza, and its association with the older generation of Dumfries, to sort of bring it back for a younger generation with the music that we're interested in.
It's especially important to have a strong identity for pop-up events, even more so than if you're stationed somewhere in a permanent location. You need to, as part of being a pop-up event, you need to be instantly recognisable to your audience. If you're travelling from location to location, for example, you need your audience to instantly recognise who you are as an event or organisation. So that's thinking about everything from your logo to your colour palette and your typography, anything how you present yourself in your marketing or digital sphere, but also thinking about how that translates into your spaces that you're using for the events. So for example, the Plaza had quite a DIY aesthetic, so that's evident within the logo type, but also within the spaces that we've chosen to use, which have kind of quite a raw and stripped back aesthetic.
Because I find the concept so interesting, I was mega into it from the start. I think it's something people don't maybe do enough of. So many cool spaces around that you can really just jump into and use if you've just got a little bit of knowledge on how to put that together. I was a big fan of the fact that every venue was different, so they all had a unique look from an audience point of view and a production point of view. They all had unique challenges on putting together the look of the show as well, so you could kind of push the bow out and do something that was unique to that room, which I thought was a great thing.
The venues changed all the time, but there was just something so raw and DIY about them that just looked so amazing in images, which it was just really fun to capture.
Pop-up events are really important in supporting creative people. I think there's a real sense of collaboration that comes with that, whether that's through the marketing or the visual identity, or having photographers come down to capture the event itself, or videographers to film it. So it's a really nice way of bringing together a creative community and also working with a lot of different people across lots of different areas.
Dumfries being quite a rural place with probably a lower frequency of live shows and live entertainment and things, it can be quite tricky for freelancers and creatives to come together on different shows and things. And I think things like the Plaza provides a great opportunity for that. It's a great platform for these freelancers to sort of come together and showcase some of their best work.
It was really amazing to be able to capture so many different bands and musicians from across Scotland as well, and be able to meet them and just welcome them to Dumfries as well, was something that I really loved. At times it was challenging, but in a good way. Photographing in very small, intimate spaces that are not necessarily meant for gigs was difficult at times. You know, not having the most amazing lighting set up, really small spaces where you're trying to navigate yourself around audiences proved to be difficult at times, but for me it was a real learning curve, and I've taken those skills and been able to use them to put into my photography now. So it really helped me develop my skills as a photographer and push forward with my career in music photography as well.
The Plaza Toolkit is a digital online resource, so you can find it and download it on our website.
I think the Plaza Toolkit that DMC have put together is a great resource for getting a little bit of knowledge into artists or promoters or people just with an interest in seeing live music around the town. It's a really kind of simple guide to jumping in and putting on your own shows.
It not only defines how to put on a DIY gig, but it also is a case study of how successful DIY gigging can be in a small town.
Being able to see these almost undiscovered spaces, you know, like I remember walking into one of the gigs and just thinking like you didn't know it was there, you know, like the press, like just the beautiful tiles on the wall, and you know, it's off the high street, it's just down an alleyway, but it's like places like this does exist in Dumfries, but we just don't get the opportunity to see them because they're kind of tucked away a bit.
I think my fondest memory was the first Plaza gig, which was on, well, it was an old shopping centre on Irish Street. It was totally wrong acoustically. It was like, you know, granite walls and bouncy floor and everything, so it didn't quite work in terms of sound quality. But the idea that there was so many different sorts of people, you know, not just my people I knew or people other people knew, but there was so many groups and so many different kind of people that came along, and the diversity of the acts that were on and the way that we utilised the space, the way that we kind of took it over. The people that were, you know, using that space at the time, mental health charity, were amazed, you know, and we were able to provide that experience and that idea of possibility that you could do this with the space that you're in had never really occurred to them. So I think even just opening that door to what is possible led to so many more inspiring and creative ways of taking over spaces in all the other plazas.
I think you could definitely tell it was something unique and exciting, and having grown up in Dumfries and been a part of the music scene and gone to gigs when I was younger, felt really special to me to be able to be part of this and to document it.
Just been a complete journey from start to finish. I think our biggest success was surviving COVID, and we were like adamant that we were going to be sticking to a live experience, and we didn't sort of succumb to that digital world. Everyone else was putting on that sort of digital gig, but at the Plaza we wanted to make sure that people were experiencing something live and real, and we stuck to our guns and we proved that, and we parked the project aside for a short amount of time, and then we came back with an ultimate live gig, and I'll still remember that for as long as I live.
This is sort of promoting a different way of doing things, which is led by the grassroots. It's led by the people that really want to see those things happen, and because they live there.
Do it. That would be my advice if you want to start your own sort of DIY project. It's a great sense of achievement to actually bring a community together into one space, and when that community tends to be a creative one, it's a very special place to be. I think with the Plaza project, it's it's not just been a movement of music; it's also been a movement of people, and yeah, it's the door's open to anybody.
So that idea of takeovers and a cultural kind of or creative means of doing that is vital for the future of the creative industries generally, because the culture is not made by the people at the top, it's made by the people at those kind of spaces and these grassroots initiatives. And that's what's vital and what's most important. And to share that and to share the knowledge and to spread the resources and support one another is what we need to do.